Hello, everyone. I hope you're all well and you're taking great care of yourselves, and I hope that your weekend is going enjoyably. I hope you're staying cool. It's been quite humid here, and the end of last week was quite hot. But you never know in New England what's going to happen next. Now, I just wanted to clarify some things. I had created just a very candid talk about my thoughts and some of the reactions to a certain organization's legal responsibilities in terms of working with authorities um, regarding Chantal, aka Foodie Beauty's behavior, as well as Salah's and some others. I don't know technically who the others are, since that will be revealed after Eid. Now, I would like to say that everything I say here is based on my opinions, understanding, um, and my perspective of what's going on. It is not my intention to desecrate anybody's religion, to interfere in any investigation. I find that the matters here are extremely serious. Uh, I find it serious on many levels that another animal of Chantel's was exploited um, and put at risk. The other being that she had violated Kuwait's customs and perhaps laws, and I'd like to get into that in a more structured way, at least around her legal accountability. Now, I've done some research on this. I'm not a legal person. I am somebody with some perspective around this, but I am speaking from a layperson's perspective. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm open to criticism, and I will say this as carefully and as respectfully as I can. In recent months, increasing attention has been paid to the conduct of Chantal, also known as Beauty, during her time in Kuwait. For years now, much of the discussion is centered around the recent weirdness surrounding her involvement with catnapping and the respectable organization Paws Kuwait, which serves animals in the area to take care of them. And Paws Kuwait is that respectable organization that found itself inadvertently implicated due to Chantel's online behavior and presence. I aim to try to unpack the situation within the framework of Kuwaiti civil and Islamic law. Now, I am not an expert in any of this. This is just stuff that I've read about, was able to compile as much as I can. Explore the allegations of the criminal conduct and highlight the legal obligation of entities like PAWS Kuwait to report and address potential crimes. It is also it will also examine the possible international dimensions of this case, including the role of Interpol. Um, I just want to make it clear that currently, from what I understand, if Chantal is indeed back in Canada, I don't want to encourage anything because I'm just a person with an opinion here. I have no involvement or direct involvement in this world other than my own opinions I address here. I have no knowledge of this woman, her whereabouts, nothing like that. It's just that there seems to be no extradition treaty, and I don't even know if she has left Canada or not. Little bits and pieces of information doesn't symbolize anything, doesn't mean anything. We don't know. And I think that if these crimes are serious enough, she's in a lot of trouble. So I wanted to address the legal and moral duty to report crimes in Kuwait. At least this is my perspective, because I've heard conversations about why this organization is taken on this role. Now, I cannot vouch for anybody or anything or any entity, but this is what I think is going on. As a person who is unfamiliar with the way that things work in Kuwait, and I say this again respectfully and in my opinion, in Kuwait, the duty to report crimes is both legal and ethical. From my understanding, according to Article 14 of the Kuwaiti Criminal Procedures Law number 17 of 1960, any person who becomes aware of a crime is required to report it immediately to the authorities. Failure to do so, regardless of the individual's involvement in the crime, can result in penalties, including up to 6 months in prison or fine. I do not know the extent that this is enforced, if it's been revised since then. This obligation becomes even more significant for organizations. If PAUSE Kuwait had any knowledge of crimes committed under or near their name, which I think they're completely innocent as far as I'm concerned. That's probably why they went radio silence when this happened. They still are legally bound to report those activities which they are doing, which the entity is doing. Now, in general, not doing so could potentially implicate them in criminal liability by association, which doesn't appear to be the case because they are very upset about this and they are in full cooperation. Like I said, I can't vouch for anybody, but by all accounts, I think that they're being ethical and their behavior and reactions are lawful according to their laws and customs. Beyond civil law, Islamic legal principles also support this duty. In Islamic jurisprudence, concealing this knowledge of wrongdoing, particularly acts of harm society or violate acts that harm society or violate moral codes, is itself considered unethical and potentially sinful. Therefore, even if the state civil courts were involved, the religious obligation to speak out against and prevent wrongdoing remains the same, remains strong. So if you see some of those references in how they are conducting themselves online, it is perfectly legal and responsible of PAUSE Kuwait. Be mindful of that because Kuwait has a very different system of doing things, which some people um, are challenging. And I just want to be clear that different places have different systems of law. Um, Now, this is regarding Chantal's alleged misconduct in Kuwait, um, especially desecration of religious and cultural spaces. I wouldn't say this is an accusation, but from what is discussed and from what I can interpret, I'm not a witness to this. I'm just going by what I've researched. One of the most talked about incidents involves Chantal filming herself in an Islamic cemetery. In many Islamic cultures, grave sites are sacred. I mean, you can hear Salah telling her to be careful and whatnot. I don't know if that was even legal itself. It is strictly forbidden to disturb them or use them for personal media. And I personally understand why that would be in that case. This act was viewed not just as culturally insensitive, but potentially illegal under public order and respective laws. I think people might have addressed that already. Okay, so here comes the cybercrime and defamation. Chantal is also accused of defaming Kuwait, including allegedly labeling them a terrorist organization. Now, it's not Chantal that's being accused here necessarily. Um, it it is the thought that she is behind a sock puppet that might have said that this is a terrorist organization, or that somebody else was involved in that, and that in itself becomes problematic, and maybe that's what's being investigated. Now, in general, um, under Kuwaiti cybercrime law number 63 of 2015, such behavior is criminalized. So, Article 6 of this penalizes the use of information technology to defame, insult, or incite hatreds against groups, individuals, or institutions. It also criminalizes insulting religious symbols or national entities. Penalties, I think, include up to a year in prison and fines. I'm not too sure in Kuwaiti dinars how much that is now and if that's being enforced. Now, whether Chantal made accusations under this sock puppet account, if that's indeed her, I'm not accusing her. The use of digital platform to disseminate harmful claims constitutes a cybercrime under Kuwaiti law. In an Islamic and conservative nation like Kuwait, slander and character assassination are taken far more seriously than in many Western jurisdictions. That includes some of her connections and so called relationships with other Kuwaitis or other people within Kuwait working there and stuff. So, she's just doing it one after another. Now, here's the other one: solicitation of money under false pretense, what we can call grifting. So, another emerging concern, well, it's pretty much, um, I would say, exposed, is the solicitation of funds from her online followers, allegedly under misleading circumstances. Chantal reportedly asked for money to pay for pet care or whatever, health issues, or while evidence suggests these funds may have been diverted for other uses, and I think that topic had been addressed. Under Articles 231 to 236 of Kuwaiti's Penal Code, fraud is defined as any act of deception used to unlawfully obtain money or benefits from another person if the individual uses false pretenses or deliberately omits important facts in an effort to gain sympathy or financial gain. Then they may be criminally liable. Soliciting funds while in Kuwait, especially online, could trigger prosecution for fraudulent financial solicitation, especially if victims report her actions to the authorities. Now, um, in this case, I do not know. I would say that Pause Kuwait as an entity is being victimized because there was some mention that that money would be funneled to them for the care of this animal or something like that. I'm not certain. So it really complicates things. This adds a financial crime dimension to her case beyond the cultural and moral issues already at play. Now, could Interpol get involved? Because the alleged activities involved international communication and funding, because some people have donated to this. Now, that can be tricky. Do they know that they're donating to her under this grift or what? It gets tricky. Um, the question of Interpol's involvement naturally arises in this situation. Kuwait is a member of Interpol and the Kuwait National Center Bureau, I believe the NCB, works with Interpol to investigate and prosecute cross-border crimes, including cybercrime, terrorism, and financial fraud if the crimes span multiple jurisdictions. let's say victims in Canada, the US, etc. There's sufficient evidence of international financial fraud or cyber harassment. A formal complaint is filed through Kuwaiti authorities. Then Interpol could issue a red notice, effectively flagging Chantal internationally for arrest and extradition um, depending on local laws. Again, there is no extradition treaty, but if she's in another country where that is, I don't know if she can be recalled to Kuwait. It's possible she was banned from leaving pending investigation. I don't know. While this outcome is very speculative, and I want to be careful because we are going to get some facts very soon, and contingent on the severity of the case itself, cyber defamation and online financial fraud are rising international priorities for law enforcement agencies worldwide, which is why Kuwait has very strict laws around this. Now, the next thing is the cultural context. Some may wonder why these actions have caused such an uproar. Well, I think most people have empathy and understand why. The reality is that Kuwait is a conservative Islamic society. I say that respectfully, and its laws reflect deep cultural and religious values, something that I believe Chantal has ignored and even devalued. Disrespecting grave sites, mocking religion, if that's indeed what she did, I don't know if she's done that. But I would say if she's cosplaying as a Muslim and not behaving like one, that could factor into something. But that would be something for the authorities to think about. And I want to be very careful when I say that. Um, Defaming nationals and exploiting the kindness or trust of others, especially financially, are considered serious breaches of public decency and legal boundaries. This is not about overreach or authoritarianism per se. It's about understanding the laws of the land you're in. When Chantal entered Kuwait, she became subject to Kuwaiti law, not the leniency or ambiguity sometimes present in our Western jurisdictions, which, in my opinion, I much rather be here than anywhere else, to be honest with you. And I know that ambiguity doesn't guarantee a lot of protection for a lot of people, but I'm a firm believer in due process from my Western eyes, so please understand where I'm coming from. Her alleged, her arrogance and alleged disregard for these norms have put her in potential conflict with the legal system she clearly did not understand. And to be honest with you, she has never respected anybody else's homes, countries, hotels, um, feelings, or anything else. She has serious underlying problems, issues with authority, in my opinion. And I believe that she is extremely disturbed as an individual. She doesn't know her boundaries, and I don't think she cares because it's about her and her, uh, you know, attention and intention. And because she is what I would consider so mentally unwell, I don't know if any leniency would be granted. Um, that part I haven't really researched. I'm not looking at this and saying that Kuwait is too severe. There, there may be some considerations for her situation, but I don't know. I don't live there. I do not practice this religion. I do not understand, do not know this culture. I've never been there. The role of Pause Kuwait. Well, their role in this is critical. It's a local organization, and it's caught in difficult but clear position. They are legally required to report misconduct, especially when their name or image is connected to that misconduct. conduct. This isn't about vengeance or online drama from them. No way. I do not get that at all. It's about compliance, I believe, with national law and safeguarding their reputation. Any organization operating in Kuwait must uphold the principles of integrity and public morality or face consequences. I seem to think that they care about their reputation and what they do, and what they're doing is not outside of the norm, in my opinion, what I would expect given my understanding of what their responsibilities are in Kuwait and those laws. This case is more than just influence or drama. Of course, it's just a cautionary tale. It serves as a reminder that traveling to or living in another country requires cultural competence, humility, and legal awareness. The laws you're used to in Canada or the US do not obviously apply in Kuwait. And I think that people generally understand that. I notice because they've received an out, the organization has received an outpouring of support because of their mission. And I think that they generally understand what those differences are. I think some questions have come why this organization is sort of conducting this, compiling this evidence and everything, but it's because they have to. And what they're doing is a community service, a national service, as far as I'm concerned. I do not know how that is filed in their country. I'm just saying that from a compassionate opinion. This is not to implicate them in any way, and I can understand why they're doing what they're doing. If Chantel has committed these alleged offenses, be it cybercrime, defamation, grifting, grave desecration, um, taking pictures of places she's not supposed to, which I didn't really bring up in this, or false accusations against a Kuwaiti organization of any kind, whether it's for a grift or whatnot, she could face serious legal consequences. And I think that there are a lot of people who want that for her. People have spent their money and their time working to bring an end to Chantal in one way or another. And that is a different set of circumstances I find disturbing. I think she should face consequences for her horrific behavior, but I think people continue to fund and support her because I think that they want her um, expired, in my opinion. Um, so going back to the legal aspect, if Interpol is ever involved, the case could quickly shift from a national issue to an international one. Again, it's going to be complicated because there is no extradition treaty between Kuwait and Canada. I do not know the legal ramifications for this, but it could make it difficult that she isn't going to go back to Kuwait again. But there has been precedents where people have civilly sued internationally very successfully. So we'll see what happens if this becomes a civil issue, if it's not a criminal one. For now, we await any formal updates from Pause Kuwait. But let this be clear, legal systems abroad are not games, and cultural disrespect comes at a cost. And it's not just a caution to protect yourself, but have some respect for other people. Sure, we may not agree with what other people do, but you don't have a right to crap on other people like that. She's gonna face it the hard way if she's not facing it now. And and she may not feel safe anywhere. And that might be the consequence itself. Um, there could be ramifications outside of the law, that which has nothing to do with Kuwait at all, or this legal thing. But there's a lot of people are talking about this, and she could very well be in danger. That's one thing I don't like about this. Like, even me talking about her despicable behavior. Her behavior is despicable. There has to be a balance between justice and abuse. And I do think that some of her more ardent followers are really not liking her. I don't think many people really like her. I think they just support her because they want to watch her fail. That's a lot. It happens to a lot of these controversial YouTubers at the end of the day. I do believe Chantel needs to face action for her treatment of animals, her um, uh, the way that in her misconduct, and I do think that she needs deep psychological counseling. But that's where I stand with this. Again, this is my opinions, perspective, and understanding of what's going on. If I am incorrect in any way, please feel free to correct me. I will publicly acknowledge that either in the comments or another video, because it's not my intention to stick my nose in this or interfere other than um, my interpretation and my right to interpret that. And I do not think poorly of Kuwait or Kuwaiti people or anybody working in Kuwait or anything like that. I have no ill will or disrespect for their culture and for their people in stating this. I mean that because it's not who I am. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye bye. I also want to add something I didn't mention earlier in the video, which I think is really important to clarify. Salah, her alleged husband, if that marriage is not genuine, could already be in violation of Kuwaiti personal status laws. So a fake or fraudulent marriage, especially if it is used to gain residency, which it hasn't in this case because she keeps having to make visa runs, or social credibility, what she presents online, could constitute legal fraud and may also be tied to violations of public decency laws. What's even more serious are the allegations that Salah has sent pornographic or explicit messages to a woman. Under Kuwaiti's cybercrime law, number 63 of 2015, sending sexually explicit or pornographic content electronically is a criminal offense. This law strictly prohibits the misuse of communication technology to share obscene materials, and violations can result in severe penalties, including imprisonment and fines. If this was done in a harassing, unsolicited, or threatening manner, it could also fall under Articles 198 and 199 of the Kuwaiti Penal Code, Law Number 16, again of 1960, which prohibit acts of violating public morals and decency. These articles have been increasingly applied to cases involving online harassment or sexually inappropriate content. And finally, there are concerns this might involve more than just one individual if, as some reports suggest, there are others involved in similar behavior or connected activities. I don't know about this particular one, but probably the fraud part. This could potentially fall under Kuwait's laws on criminal conspiracy or organized crime, depending on the scale and coordination and what is involved. That's a completely different legal category with heavier implications, including Article 56 of the Penal Code, which covers participation in criminal groups or networks. I don't know if it'll go that far because I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So it's possible this situation is far more serious and legally complex than it appears on the surface. I think people have speculated as such. We're not just talking about one person behaving inappropriately. There may be multiple layers of misconduct, each with distinct legal consequences under Kuwaiti law, and I'm almost afraid to find out. But we'll see what the facts are, what they presented themselves, and what the investigation reveals, perhaps, or any updates from Pause Kuwait regarding what their findings are, whatever they can legally reveal. Do not press them to reveal more than what they are legally obliged to do. Thank you.